We don't have guard dogs at Stone Park, Paul.
I know that, too. That's not the point, is it? I mean, the food allowance is the same for male and female prisoners, isn't it?
Basically, yes. Food can be bought in bulk for all the prisoners, and quite a lot of it is produced on prison farms, and naturally that keeps the costs down.
It's about £2 per head per week.
It still costs something like £40 a week to keep a person in prison, Paul.
Well, you're on £6,000 a year for a start, Mother.
£14.90 a week. It's not much, is it?
I seem to think it's enough for a man and 2 kids to live on in the middle of London.
How much of it goes on rent?
£5.50. Out of the rest, I have to pay the gas, the electricity, clothe the kids, feed us all.
I think it's disgusting too, Mr. Brogan, but unfortunately I'm not in a position to do anything about it. I believe they do lower the rent after you've been on it for 8 weeks, which you have now.
Yeah, but then they lower the payments. I mean, you don't end up with any more to spend. The council gets less rent, that's all. Oh, gold!
I don't put them in prison, Paul. I just look after them while they're there.
I'm not criticizing you, Mother. I know you do. But why, for example, can't they be allowed to earn a living inside? Get a proper full day's wage for a full day's work, out of which they can help pay for their keep and that of their dependents. I mean, it's such a logical, obvious answer.
Did you know that most trade unions are opposed to prisoners doing any kind of work that might cause unemployment among their members?
That's ridiculous. So, 40,000 people, many of them capable of doing something constructive, something positive in the way of work, have to spend their time doing dull, stupefying, soul-destroying jobs like sewing mail bags or filling pencil boxes.
I'm afraid most of them, yes. But women turn to crime for quite different reasons. They're mainly emotional. They're disturbed social pressures.
They still have to suffer the indignity of having to rely on the system for everything. And surely it's that which causes most of the problems. The apathy, the resentment, the
Who's there?
It's Joyce. You didn't mind me asking her round for a drink and to meet your mother?
Not at all. I'd be very interested to meet the woman who suddenly turned my son into such an ardent prison reformer.
Mrs. Boswell.
Hello.
I'm so pleased to meet you at last. A real establishment figure was responsible for perpetuating our horrible penal system.
Really?
Do you,
Oh, no, thanks. Thank you. You don't mind my calling on you like this, do you?
No, I was just wondering why.
Well, Mrs. Boswell, the governor, encourages an interest in inmates' problems, and, well, it helps so much if you have a good knowledge of the kind of background, the sort of domestic situation that exists outside, you know.
She's all right.
Your wife?
Yeah, she gets looked after in there. It's me.
Isn't there anyone who can look after the children so that you can go to work?
My man's dead, old lady's too old. And Jane's parents don't want to know.
What about a day nursery?
Oh, you try and find one. That is if you can afford it.
What was Jane like with you and the children?
She looks after us all right.
Then why did she start shoplifting?
She wanted more, you know.
Couldn't you stop her?
She's got a will of her own, my missus. And I don't like the racking, so...
You know she's been in trouble since she's been in. Oh, well, not while she's been at Stone Park, although... Well, she has been a bit difficult. Edgy, if you know what I mean.
I saw her on a visit the other day.
Yes, I know. She wanted a welfare visit.
She told me.
Oh?
You wouldn't let her have one.
Well, I'm afraid welfare visits, like any special visits, they have to be approved by the governor. And there has to be a good reason. Is there one?
Well, she's got a few visits in hand because I couldn't get up the stile to see her.
Yes, but you can now.
Yeah.
What?
Well, on those visits, you know, like with all those people about, you get uptight, you know, you can't relax, talk properly. And they go so quick.
Yes, I know. I'll tell you what, Mr. Brogan, I'll have another word with the governor. See if I can arrange something. In the meantime, try not to worry. I'm sure Jane will settle down all right. Did she tell you she's working in the laundry?
Yeah.
And she started an evening class. Art. Is she any good at it?
Well, of course it is. The only colours they've given me. See, I'll cut her throat too this time. No, I did.
I don't think that any intelligent person would disagree with the fact that locking people away in a totally false environment can be anything but harmful.
Nobody denies these problems, but I haven't heard you suggest any alternative solution. And I hope you wouldn't disagree that there are quite a few people in prison who would be a lot more harmful and destructive to others if they were free.
Of course not, but they're the small minority. I'm talking about the others, the so-called inadequates. Well, they aren't allowed to make any but the simplest decisions about their own lives while inside. And then the system places them outside the walls, after keeping them in this unreal cocoon, and says, there you go, now make it on your own.
No matter how progressive you or people like you are limited, hampered, if you like, by rules, regulations, bureaucracy.
And an unsympathetic public. You must remember, Paul, both of you, that the prison service is the Cinderella of social services. But you, like all young people, want to see radical changes, and you want them now, today. But that isn't possible. It takes time, patience, money.
But, Mother, millions of pounds are being spent on new prisons. Millions. And most of that on security devices. I've heard you say so myself. And £2 a head on food.
And nobody wins elections on penal reform.
Security has to be considered, you know.
So do people.
Yes, and when you've had some experience of dealing with people instead of ideas, you might begin to understand some of their problems.
Come on now, it's time to talk. I'm afraid there just isn't time, Ethel, to finish it off. All right then. And you too. Quick as you can now, pick up the tins and the paint off the floor. It's a terrible mess. Get all these chairs stacked away.
It's all very therapeutic, isn't it?
But surely, Mrs. Boswell, in prison, the creative arts provide almost the only positive element in an almost entirely negative situation.
Not entirely negative. We do encourage creative work at Stone Park. We have classes, for example, in arts and crafts, which include making soft toys, needlework, painting.
Yes, I know. 2 hours an evening, twice a week. And for the other 164 hours a week, your charges spend their time in mind-numbing occupations like making jam or treadling sewing machines.
Oh, Joyce,
And I know it's only a few hours a week because I happen to have a friend who takes the art class at your prison, David Jenkins, who, incidentally, has been teaching there now for almost 6 months and tells me that he has never even seen you, let alone met you.
Joyce, really,
Which may or may not be indicative of the amount of encouragement that you give to creative work, Mrs. Boswell.
I think perhaps you'd better take Miss Fletcher home, Paul.
Well, I'm sorry. I've been very rude, Mrs. Boswell. Was a guest in your home, it's inexcusable, I know. But I do feel very strongly about these things, and I can't stand hypocrisy.